Hello there, and welcome to the value of everything. So, I'm going to start today with a few problems in this world, and then I'm going to put forward a solution. So, problems in this world today we have intellectuals who create these fantastic ideas and don't really want to share with anybody else because they want to keep the royalties and the wealth generation from that idea to themselves. We have more so elite investors rather than inventors, and when we have an inventor, they really have to start to put on the business suit and be very profit-seeking rather than really furthering humankind. We have a lot of people in this world who enjoy downloading torrents, torrents which connect to movies, I guess, on peer-to-peer networks, and they really don't like the way that the government points their fingers at them and accuses them of doing wrongdoing there. And so therefore the copyright rulings is really demonizing them. And then we have a world in which artists really are just putting out their work now for free. They're not really earning much at all, especially the ones who are starting off in life, not like the ones in the 80s, but the ones now today. They're having to do everything for free. And the only real way that they can get any kind of value in return or currency in return is to create some kind of scarcity, like go to a concert where it's a one-off and then potentially gain some kind of money in return. But it's not a really great way, and they really want to be producing art and work rather than doing things which has to sort of lasso their audience into paying them coin. Okay, so I'm going to put forward a proposition which is called value coin, or IP coin, which would stand for intellectual property coin. And I'm just going to outline how this is going to be done, how it's going to be measured, how it could be implemented. And I'm just going to put forward just this really good, well, it's my opinion anyway, but this theory of two market principles and how they're going to exchange to each other and how it's going to measure a certain thing in life, which could be quite amazing. And yeah, I'm just going to go through all of those items and see where it takes us. So this is the value coin. Now, how would all these problems be solved? So how could it be done? So let's just look firstly at what's carrying on today in this world. We have copyright rules and patents, and when everybody produces something of value, they would go to the patent shop or copyright their music. And so if anybody is using that and replicating it for themselves and living off the proceeds of somebody else's work, they would go to the government and say, please, can you go after them because they are stealing all of my intellectual property? So it's a bit of a vicious circle. It's sort of like the old days in which you would have a slave who would run away from your farm, and you go to the state and say, hold on a minute here, this slave man has run away from my farm. Please, can you capture him and bring him back? It's sort of like we're living in this little bit of a moral world, but we think it's all very illegitimate in the way in which it works. Okay, now there is other ways in which people can get around that system without using the force of the state. One being branding. So you create this fantastic hologram label on your football kit or whatever, and everybody knows that that's not replicable in any kind of way. We create a secret formula or make the engineering so technical and difficult that it will be very hard to backwards engineer that item. So there is little means and ways, and obviously in the world of extreme brands like material goods and in the world of high technology, there is these two sort of industries which are still sort of staying alive because of the branding elements, your Dolce & Gabbanas and things like that, and your Gucci's, and your highly technological sort of things like your Mercedes-Benz's. I guess that's a sort of branch of the two things there, and that's why they're sort of sticking around and being of high value. Okay, but there is obviously an amazing array of things in the world which require a lot of intellectual power to produce, to master a certain skill, and it's really just getting thrown out there and not really being used because of the replication ability of that kind of things, because we are able to copy something into a massive state. So wherever we create a movie, wherever we create some kind of music, it's always going to be in that situation where you can make a copy of it on a peer-to-peer network. Okay, so this is where we're going to go into the measurements of the value coin. So I'm just going to go on to just one of the elements I just briefly covered on just beforehand. So I was talking about scarcity and abundance. Now, to get on to the next phase, and I think this is where the how we have to think about things in life, and I think this is how Zeitgeist movement is sort of trying to channel in, and it's hitting a lot of brick walls in terms of its thinking, is this scarcity and abundance thing and how they interact with each other. Now, we have to agree that there is scarcity in this world of resources. There is a finite amount of resources in this world. Also, we have to accept that there is human desires, which is infinite, and there is a multitude of ideas which can be put out there, and there is this two sort of combined things which are at odds with each other. Now, this is where I'm going to put the principle of the value coin forward. So if we create two separate markets, one based upon scarcity, so we know that obviously it has to run by the principle of scarcity because it is a tangible world. There is a certain finite amount of gold coins that we can produce in this world, whereas we can imagine a million Googleplex kind of golden coins. So we have to work by those two principles. Okay, so also it will be really good that if somebody creates intellectual property, though that kind of work is rewarded, because obviously even though it is something that can be reproduced, it's really annoying that how it's not ever getting some kind of monetary return. Also, when you look at the two markets together, if you are incredibly good with your intellect and you are able to invent great new technology which is able to produce a lot more with a lot less energy, therefore your scarce market becomes cheaper in comparison to your intellectual market. And this is where the two things are connecting slowly together here. So another principle I just want to make here as well is that there is no idea which is original. So where we're born, we're born into a sort of a body of human, and that's got a complete DNA code. None of that's original. It's copies of copies of copies and environments which have been transferring over, and then once we've gone into this world, we've got copies and copies of ideas and books and movies and culture which get bombarded on us to create ourselves, and we derive all these different ideas and we just build on, and we grab these couple of ideas we got from somewhere else and we put it together, like what I'm trying to do here with this podcast. So we can work on that principle that when you have intellectual property, it's not your unique intellectual property. You're not the only person in the world who has thought of a car or the color green. You have got these concepts, these ideas, you're bringing them together and you're innovating. You're building upon an idea. When you're a chemist, you're using all the things of the scientific method, old philosophies and all those kind of things, and you're building upon what the wind of all the changes of which have been created throughout time. So once we make that distinction that you're only building upon things and it's not your ownership of things, then we potentially can create a market principle based upon innovation rather than intellectual property. Okay, so hopefully I've still got you here so far. Now, this is how we're going to implement this. So just briefly, I just mentioned about rewarding hard work and no idea is original, and we're only building upon things. So how do we do those things? How can we create a system in which we are rewarding innovation and we are building and building? Okay, so we're going to use the blockchain technology in this principle. So we have an account and we upload innovation ideas. Okay, so I'm putting forward a new idea. I upload this onto an internet system. Okay, now we're branching across a number of technologies here, and I'm just going to explain a few of them to you. So firstly, we have Google, the internet, search engines. We're going to be using that piece of technology. We're going to be using sort of military hardware, which is like pattern recognition, facial recognition, all of those kind of things which the NRA is using right now to detect terrorists or people that are speaking against the state and things like that. We use that technology as well. So we're combining search engines. We're using pattern recognition, which I guess is a little bit of a combination of the two. We're using peer-to-peer networks whereby people can interact independently on individual nodes and share and download with each other. We're using the blockchain, so everybody has accounts. Everything is protected by encryption, so there is no transfer or dodginess where people can steal other people's account information and account wealth. We're using a system of giving rewards, or a mining system in terms of the blockchain. So where you mine for data or you mine for the encrypted password, it's a different value structure. But in terms of pattern recognition, how much you are producing, which other people are using on this peer-to-peer network, downloading for themselves and using in the tangible world. Okay, so this peer-to-peer network basically would be a server-run network, and it would be an internet running on itself. And I guess it's free to use. People just access this innovation internet by itself. They download the ideas, they extract it, and then people will understand that a lot of ideas are being downloaded from this innovator. This person is very good at innovating, so there is a royalty fee which is being returned because of the ideas that they're generating and the amount of people that are using those ideas in the tangible world. Okay, a lot of information there. I understand that. And there's a good idea of theory and putting things into practice, which is very complicated. Bit of coffee there. Okay, now, next up would be, how do we put this into action? Because it's going to be very tricky in the sense that if you've got somebody that's producing all these innovation ideas, how do you work out that his idea is original? Well, I guess there is a certain sense that you would have pattern recognition. You would understand that this idea is, with a pattern recognition system, they could say, okay, you've got this idea from here, here, and here. So you've only really done a tiny little bit of a 4% twist on these ideas. So therefore, we're going to give you this revenue stream. Okay, so this should be decentralized. There should be no central power that dictates that some person is innovating better than the other. So there is this element of fine-tuning to a degree of giving an innovator a certain amount of royalty fees, so I guess the value coin coming back to their stream, not being too much as to being so that they can just live back and enjoy the royalties and never work again, and being just enough to keep them sustaining to work for these value coins and keep on innovating and pushing forward humankind and our living standards. So, incredibly difficult task here. How would you set the pattern recognition system to work out, here's all the data, here's all the information of the internet, this is how much of a percentage you have innovated here, and here is the revenue stream that goes out there. It's an incredibly difficult task, and this is where I just pick on the idea of the multiverse. So rather than releasing just one blockchain value coin out in the world, release a million different variants of this value coin and see how it is adopted, how it's used, and by the fine balance, the fine tuning of innovators using that, downloading information and then passing it on and then enjoying the royalties, and then transferring funds between that world and the tangible world. The one that would grasp the quickest, I guess you would have different rates and ratios of which some accounting ledgers will go a lot quicker than others. So it's like a blockchain system would work a lot quicker than other systems. However, you would have potentially one winner over a period of time. You might get certain ones that come out of the blocks very early, but you might get a certain one that's got a very sustainable way in which royalties or value coins are coming back to innovators, and then these innovators can gain that revenue stream to transfer their value coins back into the tangible world. And let's assume that Bitcoin is the tangible world in which there is scarcity and there is finite resources. So this is, I guess there's a lot of information here in terms of what I'm putting out there. Now, I just want to go back to these two market principles here. So we have the scarce market. So let's say Bitcoin, where you assign all these property that you own. You assign your land property, you assign your body property, you assign your say your car, all those tangible goods onto this blockchain ledger. And these are all tangible goods in which you live in this world, and these are finite resources. There are only certain limited amounts of resources in this world, or universe, we could say, if you want to go that far. And also on the other side, we have the intellectual property coin, or the value coin, interacting between the two markets. Now, the interesting thing is that, say if these are fully established markets, over time, we are going to see that as intellectual innovation gets better and better, and it produces more things with less energy, then that market will increase in value, whilst the tangible side will decrease. And when we see that ratio of how innovation and living standards and our intellect is improving on how much we are doing more with our ideas for the energy and the resources that we're using, then we are getting this incredible exchange rate of how much we are furthering mankind. And this is an important factor. I guess where we look at governments today, we look at GDP and how much productivity and economic growth which is happening, but it's all really sort of some kind of massive siphoning way of credit expansion and filling the pockets of the elites. But in this methodology, we are finding a system in which we've got this ratio, this perfect ratio of understanding how far we are going and we are taking ourselves. And potentially this is sort of the answers where you look at humanity and how there's different stages of a race and a life system. It's how we apply ourselves to energy, how we can get off this planet, how we can use the power of the sun to the best ability, get off this planet, go interstellar. It's all of these kind of ideas which potentially can transpire from this exchange rate. Okay, so let's just go over a few more little ideas. So, in terms of exchange rates, I just want to just go back to a few other principles. Obviously, in exchange rates, we have exchange rates between two currencies, but it's not quite the same as which this amazing exchange rate could work. Usually we're looking at exchange rates between two different countries, and that has a number of different factors which come into account. The petrodollar, where the petrol, everything has to be exchanged into US dollars to buy petrol. You have interest rates, the viability of the wealth that could be produced in the future of that country, how viable it is that country to be taxed in the future, so the power of the force, the rate of expansion of money supply, and the trade surplus and deficit. So we do have these dodgy exchange rate mechanisms which are going into play, and it's all of this dodgy, malevolent weirdness which is going on, and that's why exchange rates look so incredibly mad and insane and not really humming with the way in which our world works. So I guess this is a really sort of an interesting sort of theory. I guess what you're going to find is you're going to get a lot of people pushing forward for artificial intelligence further as well, because you'll be using this kind of technology for pattern recognition, using innovative ideas, and really deploying things which is going to be good for humans' use and to produce more. So I think where AI has been stumped a lot in the past of trying to really be like a human and do all these weird things, is really just going to be used more so just for an engineering purpose of engineering ideas and the flourishment of humankind. So this does sort of push us in this weird territory as well, of us being a really hyper interconnected singularity which could flourish into a different multi-organism, which takes us even further. So I've probably gone a little bit weird there for you, but I just want to just push that theory a little bit further and see where it takes us. There was one little point that I was going to make as well, of just I think a tree growing, an organic growth of the resources and the intellect and the mind, and the freeing up of ourselves from the shackles of, I guess, a world which is really been sort of motivated by profits and greed, and getting us to really like close our minds down and trying to get all these material goods. And I guess in this world where you still have a tangible world, it's kind of interesting, but I think what would happen is that you would get this devalue, which I just mentioned before, a devaluation of material wealth, and this incredible increase of intellectual innovation instead. So this redirection of us not really fighting for all these lands and material goods, because intrinsically we are seeing value diverted, or the exchange rate mechanism going towards our intellect and our innovation, because we know that it can do a lot more than what is produced in a resource, because we can push it a lot further. Anyway, to round that off, thank you very much. If you've got any thoughts, comments, suggestions, ideas, there is obviously this theory is extremely raw, and it is open to a lot of knockout blows. So, yeah, please put them out there. We got to just test if this is watertight or not. And even if this is not a viable theory, there may be just a different branch of which we can think about things in the terms of the world that we live in and how it can be applied. Maybe we could reformulate a different idea of a blockchain to work with scarcity and abundance. Maybe we could think about this market theory and just put it out as a new economic factor for our lives. It's just a few different theories. Maybe it's not the perfect idea, but we can just try a different branch from there. Okay, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure as always, and I will speak very soon.